You ready to do this, Matt?
I think I'm ready, Spencer. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Matt Shaw. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 142. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by, relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Matt, it's been another week. It feels like it's been an eternity. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing just fine. I feel like I'm on the tail end of a sore throat cold, but doing just fine. Sounding okay. Feeling a little bit better today than I have this week. How about you? Feeling all right?
No, I've got that summer cold too. And I think you and I figured it out that like our kids brought it back from Montana and like we've all got this thing now. Brida's worried she's going to get it. And I'm thinking, come here, I'm going to kiss you. I'm going to make sure you get it.
Right. Yeah, it's part of life. It's not crazy bad, but it's also just, it's a pain and it hurts.
It's an annoyance.
It really is. An inconvenience even.
Yeah.
But with lots of water, lots of ibuprofen, my throat's feeling just fine right now.
NyQuil. I've been known on occasion when I've been like sicker than this to take NyQuil at the beginning of the show and then see how long I go before I get a little loopy.
Yeah.
Super friends, I am not doing that tonight. It is not that bad. But there's a good chance that next week that could be the case.
Oh, dear.
We'll have to see.
If it lasts that long, yeah. I have a confession about NyQuil. Not a confession. It's just somewhat interesting.
No. Confession time.
I'm new segment on the show, Confession Time. Every week. I throw that stuff up. Whether it's liquid, in a pill form, Dayquil, NyQuil, many other cold medications, I'm throwing it up.
What about like peacock quills or
what the heck?
Other peacock quill you could write with old style like Revolutionary War.
Any quills?
Okay, never mind.
Any quills?
Any quills? Peter Quill?
Ink?
Do you throw up Peter Quill?
I wish. That means he'd be with me all the time. No, but I can't take it. So cold medications. Yikes. The only thing I can take is like decongestants. That's it. Anything else related to the cold, I throw it up. So it just makes my cold feel 10 times worse because I'm also over the toilet.
Sometimes though, there's that brief, this is like confession time.
Okay, yeah, here you go.
Sometimes I have a really high gag reflex. So like sometimes if I'm brushing my teeth and I'm like too far back for too long on those back teeth, I start kind of and I'm like, and I have to like stop because I'm like, I have to take a deep breath and I have to put the toothbrush down and I have to just wait a minute. So by the way, dental visits for me are a nightmare. It's just a nightmare.
Yep.
So anyway, sometimes I'll get like summer cold and like all that phlegm and like I end up that gag reflex and then I end up vomiting.
Oh no.
But I almost enjoy like the moment after you go through a round of vomiting when you're all congested because there's something like your body just forces like everything out.
Yeah.
And you have like maybe like a minute and a half of like clarity where you can breathe and everything's wonderful. And you're like, I forgot what a joyful, and then you're back to, the rest of that stuff. And it's that it's the eye of the storm. It is the eye of the vomit storm.
You are correct.
Yep.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I know the exact feeling. You're sweaty, but you're like, you know what? I feel okay.
I love how this is taking a really weird turn right off the bat.
Yep. Maybe we are both on NyQuil. I don't actually know.
Hashtag Eye of the Vomit Storm.
They know what we're talking about too. I know they do.
I know the Super Friends do.
Y'all get it.
Oh, so yeah, I'm feeling that head cold as well. I'm taking the Dayquil. I'll probably take NyQuil tonight after the show.
Yep.
Just to make sure I'm kind of like zonked out because I'm not getting a lot of sleep right now. So I could use that.
All that stress and anxiety.
Yep. So part of that comes from the fact that I'm working right now. I worked all weekend. So I worked all last week, and then I worked this weekend. I'm working all this week, all this upcoming weekend, and then the following week after. Because we have this big office move. We're taking 2 of our offices, and we're moving all into one shared office facility on the other side of town. And right now we're putting together conference rooms and we're going to be moving TVs over tomorrow. We're going to be patching in cables for the server, for the patch panels and the switches, in prep for this weekend when we have to move servers over and all of our data backups. And it's crazy. My buddy, my coworker Jeremy from Michigan is out here to help with all of that, and my boss Blake is actually going to fly in, I think like Sunday, and be here for 2 days of the move in, which will be a good chance to see him. But at the same time, it's like I'm gonna want to spend time with him, and have some conversations.
Sure.
But it's also going to be probably pretty kind of chaotic and hectic.
Yeah.
So not only am I going to be probably exhausted, I'm also going to feel a little extra pressure to make sure, not only am I on the top of my game, but I'm also trying to make sure that, I'm available for my boss if he needs me while he's here. So it's stressful. We're trying to, trying to coordinate, getting tables over from the other building and getting TVs off the walls in the other building and over here. And we've got a special surprise. So we have these conference rooms, and we're naming them after mountain peaks in Utah. And so what we also did is we found high-resolution shots of each one of those mountain peaks that we're naming them after. Mm-hmm. And we're printing that out on canvas stretched over a frame so we can hang them in each one of the conference rooms as
cool.
some artwork to kind of help add to that. And we thought that would be really kind of a cool little touch. So we're trying to do a little bit of extras along the way. And, it's crazy. We had my sister last week in town from New Orleans, and I got to see her for all of but maybe 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours total in a week, which was kind of unfortunate, but it's just the timing. I had to miss my mom's 60th birthday party celebration. My best friend from Chicago and his wife and 4 kids stayed with us for 2 nights during this time frame, and I got maybe a couple hours with them. And I'm going to end up missing Charlie and Jackson's first day of school. They're actually going to stop going to the daycare they've been going to for 4 years now because the whole pick up and drop off from school thing has just become a logistical nightmare. So we're taking them to a daycare center that does pick up and drop off, which is great, but we have to say goodbye to the daycare lady that has been so good to our boys for the last 4 years and helped us out so much and gone above and beyond, and we just love her dearly. And we're still going to be friends, but we're not going to be seeing her, and her husband on a daily basis anymore. The kids won't be seeing their little friends there. And so all of this is going on, and we're trying to transition all this stuff, and the kids starting school, all while I'm working crazy amounts of hours, and I'm going to be gone even more this rest of this week and weekend, and Britta's having to do it all by herself. So I just publicly want to say my wife is amazing. She's doing a great job. She's holding it down, and I can't wait for my work life to settle down a little bit so I can give her a bit of a break.
Goodness gracious.
So yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, it's been nuts. I haven't been streaming on Twitch. I've taken a couple of weeks off just to say hey, I don't have time. I'm not I'm not doing anything for myself right now. Sleep is what I'm doing for myself.
Good for you.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Has your week been crazy? Please tell me your week's been somewhat normal.
My week.
I want to hear that. That would make me feel good.
It was a pretty normal week.
Yes. Good for you.
Let's see what happened this week. Hey, what didn't happen this week, but I want to let you know, I did finally see Spider-Man.
Ooh.
So that, I know,
yes.
took me a long time. And last night we watched Shazam,
Ooh,
which also is fantastic.
Yes. Oh, so good.
So I've been enjoying lots of movies, as you can tell.
So, real quick,
Yeah.
were you a Zachary Levi fan before the movie?
Only because he was in Psych the movie, actually. I didn't know him from much of other things.
Oh,
but I'm a big
really?
fan of Psych, and he was in Psych the movie. And so anybody who's ever played anything on Psych, I love you. And so I only knew him
you
from
need
that.
to go watch Chuck.
I've heard that that's good.
You should watch Chuck.
Okay.
It's got Zachary Levi in it as Chuck Bartowski, the title character. It is super good. It's the first couple seasons are really funny. It's if you liked Shazam and you really liked kind of Zachary Levi and his personality in that, you're gonna love Chuck.
Okay.
It's really good.
That's a good recommendation. Always
add it
for
to your
shows.
list. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on there. And then when at nights, I mean, I work during the day. There's not much goes on during the day. And then we've been watching lots of Seinfeld. Jesse's never seen it, so we're going through Seinfeld around season 5 now.
How's she liking it?
She likes it a lot. More than I thought she would. It's a little bit cynical, which is why I like it so much.
Right, yeah. It's kind of New York,
Kind of mean.
East Coast, yeah.
I like
the
it.
The humor's a little edgier, yeah.
I enjoy that kind of humor. Apparently, Seinfeld's one of my favorite shows. But that's it. Emmy's being Emmy, our little girl, still trying to figure out the potty training thing because she's been in Montana and back, and we're trying to get ready for the new baby that's coming in like 7 weeks. Lando's coming, so we've been having to go shopping, getting in some clothes because it's like real now. He could come, and we're like, oh,
does he have any capes yet?
I already told Jesse. Okay, get this. All right, I said this is perfect. He's born at the end of September, early October. So for Halloween, he is going as Lando.
Perfect.
And all he's got to do, I'm going with the Donald Glover style Lando. Just give him yellow little onesie with a nice cape. And then I was like, I'm just going to take some eyeliner and draw just a little mustache.
Yes.
And they said,
yes.
On a baby? How dare you? His skin is so sensitive. And I said, not my son.
Oh.
My son has perfect skin. And you leave him the freaking
My
crap
son has
alone.
manly skin.
His skin can handle an hour and a half of freaking eyeliner. It's what makes the costume. Without the pencil mustache, I mean, what's the point? Anyway.
Oh, please. Yeah, you're totally fine to put eyeliner on
I
him.
know. Oh, I know.
It's not going to cause a problem. Come on.
It's going to happen. So, so I'm already down that train. And spent a lot of time getting myself. I'm a big sports fan, big time into college football. My BYU Cougars kick off in about 2.5 weeks. So spending a lot of time getting reacquainted with the team, the schedule. It's very exciting. Listening to all the radio, podcasts, etc. So,
yep, our super friends all just tuned out. They're like, "What sports? No."
Oh, hey. Everybody's got a weak point for some kind of sport, right?
So the funny thing is, I love sports, but I just cannot get into college sports at all. Yeah. For me, it's always been and I come from Chicago, which has tons of great colleges around, but it's also like one of the best sports cities out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got all the professional leagues, and they're storied and they're famous and they're huge and so like for me, man, it's like people are like, "Would you want to watch college football?" I'm like, but I could be watching the Bears. They're a professional league. They get paid to play. They're at the top of the game.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Plus, the other thing that always kind of bugged me, and this is just, side thing, is in college, like every couple of years, and I get that this can be also the same in the professional leagues, but typically, like in the professional leagues, you can sign a guy to like an 8-year contract, especially like baseball, an 8-year contract, $140 million. Like, that pitcher's there for the next 8 years. Yep. Whereas like in college, like you're going to see a pitcher. He's maybe going to pitch for maybe a year, maybe 2, and then he's going to be drafted right into the minors, and then he's gone.
Yep.
And so, like, how do you find a way to still feel connected to a team when, like, the players rotate? Like, the entire team could be completely different in a 2-year cycle, because that's not usually the case in professional sports. It does happen, but not like, usually there's a few big stars that kind of anchor a team.
Yes, agreed. And I totally get that perspective. But growing up, I mean, sports was a huge part of my growing up, watching the local teams, obviously, but also it was BYU football every year, every game. I don't remember missing it. It was an important part of my childhood. My dad taught me to love it, and it has never died. Went to BYU, my alma mater, so
more of just a connection to the overall school and the team versus
the
like
spirit,
the actual individual team itself.
But at the same, here we go, going off another tangent here. I would prefer to watch college football over the NFL all day, every day. And people think that I'm crazy, and I'm cool with that, and I get why they think that. They're better. There's no doubt the NFL is more professional. They're faster, they're stronger, they're more athletic. But there's something about, the college atmosphere with the band and Saturday afternoon and a tailgate and all of that stuff. I don't know. Something about it for me just feels special.
Let me ask you one question then. Would you rather watch college football or high school football?
Yeah, college football.
Why?
Because I went to BYU and they're more fun to watch than a high school team.
I'm just seeing if you're going to make my argument for professional football over college football with that answer. No, that's fine. Like I'm kind of the same way as you, right? Like I love sports, and I have like this affinity and loyalty to like my teams, and they do change over time. Like I love the Bulls. I love basketball, and I love the Chicago Bulls, and oh my goodness, like I lived in the Chicagoland area in the late 80s up through like the very, very tail end of the 90s, early 2000s. Like
beautiful.
I was there for like pretty much all of Jordan's career in Chicago. I was there for all 6 championships. Like there could not have been a better time to be living in Chicago and be a Chicago Bulls basketball fan.
Yep.
But like, if I get an opportunity to go see the Bulls, if the Bulls come to town to play the Utah Jazz, I have no desire to watch the Utah Jazz play ever, for any reason, because the Bulls are my team. But I'll go see the Bulls play, even if the Bulls come to town and their team is horrible and they're crap, and I know they're going to get blown out. I'm still going to go because that's my team and I want to support them. Yep. It's like I get that loyalty. Like I totally understand that. But like for me, watching a college version of a professional league is like the same thing for like watching a high school game versus a college game. It's just, you pick, I think, where you're comfortable with the level of play and then who you're devoted to. Yeah. I think that's where it's at.
Yep. I like the level of mystery with college football. You never know what's going to happen because it's a 20-year-old kid out there slinging the pigskin against other athletic 20-year-olds. You don't know where it's going to go. These kids don't know how to play football completely. They're still learning. It can change like that. It's fun.
See, I guess I could get that with some sports. Like football, I could understand because you get to the pros, right? And it's a much harder game. It's a much harder hitting game. It's a faster game. You really got to be on the top of your game. But it's still essentially the same game. Whereas like some sports like college basketball, it's zone defense. And zone defense to me is weak sauce. And then you go to the NBA and it's man on man.
Right.
And it's almost like a different game. And so like it's so hard for me to try to watch professional basketball and then try to go watch college basketball. I'm like, wait a minute, they got 30 seconds to hit the rim? The 30-second shot clock? Oh, okay. Wait a minute, their three-point line's way closer?
Right.
Oh, okay. Like that doesn't like there's enough changes between the two. Yes, it's still the same game. It's basketball. You throw a ball through a metal hoop that's elevated. I get it. But some of the core rules and, things of that nature are vastly different, and it feels like a different sport.
I can understand that. I like them both. I ain't gonna discriminate.
Well, anyway,
moving on.
side topic there. We went on a little bit. So Marvel and
back to the content of
Batman
the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. There was something else that happened I wanted to tell you about, Matt, and I'll have to make sure you see this. So one of our super friends, Caleb Albers, who writes in regularly for the podcast, he started getting into some woodworking, and he decided that he was going to do a wood logo, like a wood piece of his podcast logo, the All Bros Podcast.
Okay.
But he wanted to practice first, so he did the Garbage and Gold podcast, which we've had Lisa and Lindsay on this podcast before, and I've been on theirs. And then he also did our logo, the Fortress of Nerditude. And so he carved it all up. I'll have to.
You got to send that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to send you a link, but it's all carved up, and I'm not exactly sure how he all did it, but he sanded it up, and then he painted it, and I saw the end product, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, that looks really good. Like, there's no way I would be able to do that. So
thank you, Caleb. So, yeah, that's cool.
Caleb, super cool. Thank you for doing that and sharing that. And he actually said next time he's up this way, he's going to drop it off. So
nice.
Not only did he do that, and we got to see like him starting to learn this new hobby and enjoying that, and he honored us, but he's actually going to give us the thing. And so like we're super, super grateful, obviously, to Caleb for that. Caleb, thank you so much. That is so cool.
Very cool, man.
Yeah, that was kind of something, a little ray of sunshine this week in a very busy week. So, yeah, what do you say, Matt? Is it time? Should we kill some Bothans?
Let's slaughter them.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Matt, we have slaughtered Bothans. The bones of the Bothans have made a pyre for us to sacrifice on, and we are now ready to sacrifice some of that rebel intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
Well, let's stick with Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
And let's roll to this. The Rise of Skywalker coming out, December 18th or something like that this year.
Yep.
Very excited. Closing of the entire Skywalker saga. J.J. Abrams back at the helm. I think we're going to get lots of good closure, lots of good fan service, I'm sure. It's J.J., so he's going to throw in the fan service. But anyway, I'm getting off topic again.
Yeah.
So here we go. John Williams' brother, Don Williams. It's
that's not confusing.
Yeah, that's... Well, I don't know what happened there. It's like he forgot he was having a kid and he had it in his hands. He's like, Don Williams? So anyway.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there. Goodness gracious. So he's helping his dad with the score. And he teased some details about kind of what's going on. And the first thing that I think is interesting is that they are working on 135 minutes of music for this film. So that clocks in at 2 hours and 15 minutes of just music. Yeah. Now, that's not to say probably not all of it's going to make it into the film, but if you've got 2 hours and 15 minutes of music, the movie's going to be longer than that. So that's the first thing that's interesting. We're going to get a long movie, it would appear. The other thing that was said is that you will hear every theme from Star Wars. Every theme that you are familiar with. He said sometimes it won't be, overtly obvious to you as a listener, maybe the first time you see it, but you'll hear a little, basically, it sounds to me like you'll hear a little something, something in the background, and you'll go, hey, I know that. And then they will, it will dawn on you. But apparently everyone's theme, Luke's theme, Leia's theme, Darth Vader's theme, Rey's theme, obviously, we're going to get all these different themes at some point during the film, which is going to give me all the feels. And, you hope to hear, right, your favorite songs, right? You hope to hear. Anyway, so it sounds like we'll be hearing most of it. It'll be interesting to see how it's all implemented, but that's kind of some cool news that we're getting Rise of Skywalker here. We haven't heard a lot about the Rise of Skywalker in quite some time now. With D23 coming up next week, I'm sure we'll hear more about it then. But
yeah, for sure. I like this, and let me tell you why. I love the John Williams soundtracks to these movies. Yeah. My favorite is to listen to The Empire Strikes Back. I got the double disc that was released sometime in the late 90s. That's literally the score of the entire film.
Awesome.
Like, there's nothing that miss, and I can just listen to that, and I can be doing something else, and I can just be transported to where that little musical cue is, and be like, oh, this is the part where Yoda's going into his little hut on Dagobah, and I just know what it is.
Yeah.
So I like this idea that we're going to hear every theme, and that they're talking about that, because what that says to me is that this is going to be a score that I'm going to want to own.
Yeah,
and
totally.
that it's going to, while it's going to have its own unique music in it, it's going to tie a lot of stuff in. And so like it could be something that potentially I could just listen to from start to finish and just feel like I've kind of gone on like an audio journey through Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I love that idea.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good thought, I should say.
Yeah.
They had the idea. Good thought on their idea.
Yeah. Right. A good interpretation of their idea.
I think it's cool.
Like, have you ever gone to like a planetarium, like where they'll put on like a star show, but then like they play like music, and sometimes it's popular music, but sometimes it'll be music that but that for some reason it just fits it. So in Salt Lake at the Clark Planetarium, they used to, this was years and years and years ago, but they would play the Dark Side of the Moon album while they were doing like a star show.
Sure.
And like, I know all that music, and I've listened to that music a ton, and Super Friends, before you come at me, I've synced it up with The Wizard of Oz. I know all about the Dark Side of Oz, or the Dark Side of the Rainbow. Like I've done all that too. But to like watch like a star presentation in a planetarium with that music, it was a different experience, and it was really cool. And so like I'm really hoping that this album, this score, will be something like I could put that on, and like I could just like maybe sit out in the backyard and like roast marshmallows and like look at the stars and just like have a moment, or a segment of time where I could just be mentally off somewhere else while listening to some amazing music.
Right.
So
well, it'll be
I
exciting.
love that idea.
It's gonna be cool. See how they tie in the prequels, the forgotten prequels.
Yeah, which has some great music. Duel of the Fates.
I want dun 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 dun. Dun. I want that in there somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how or why that would make sense anywhere, but just for me, Johnny.
Roger.
Just
Okay, so I got something for you.
Yeah.
And this is, we try on this podcast to stay positive, to not be very controversial. So obviously what we're going to talk about right here with this is going to also kind of touch on some things that have happened recently. But Universal Pictures has announced that they're pulling a movie called The Hunt that was supposed to be released this September 27th. The reason that they're pulling this is obviously because there has been a couple big shootings here within this last week or so, and unfortunately, people have died. Way too many people have died recently, and our president here in the United States has gone on and he's made comments. He's made comments about video games being to blame, and he says video games make people violent, and then they go out and they kill people, which is frankly it's just false. There's been study after study that's been done that proves that that's not the case, and also, we're not the only country that has video games. There's all sorts of other countries that have video games, and they don't have the kind of incidents that we're having on an unfortunate too regular basis. But he also had made a claim recently that he said that, Hollywood media, there's an upcoming film that's, supposed to inflame and cause chaos, which it's assumed that he was referring to this movie called The Hunt, and Universal Pictures has decided to pull it. The premise of The Hunt, and it's supposed to be kind of a satirical idea, and it is kind of controversial, but it's a film where like liberal elites are hunting conservative white people for sport. So this movie kind of has like a Hunger Games kind of feel to it, but liberal elites hunting conservatives for sport. Now, obviously, Matt, I think you and I can both easily say that the country we live in right now is split. The political divide is much stronger than I can ever remember it being in my lifetime. And it seems like it's an us versus them mentality, that it's so easy to say, like, you have your beliefs, I have my beliefs, I think you're wrong, you think I'm wrong, therefore we can't talk, all we can do is argue, and we can't try to see things from the other person's perspective. Like, it's this whole like outrage culture. We all have always got to be outraged about something, and this person donated to this candidate, so he should be boycotted.
Right.
Or this company supports this train of thought, so they should be boycotted. Like, it's this whole like us them polarization. And so a satirical movie where one kind of political group is hunting another kind of political philosophy type of group for sport doesn't seem to me like it is necessarily the right type of movie for the current climate we live in.
Yeah.
The current climate we're experiencing. Even if it's satirical. Like,
Right.
I don't think, once again, that it's going to cause people to go out and buy guns and start, mass shootings.
Right.
And I don't think it's going to cause copycats. But I think that it's not maybe the best opportunity to reinforce the us versus them mentality. However, I also don't think that it's the job of politicians to make, just kind of blanket statements trying to lay cause and blame for everything without maybe some sort of facts, some sort of evidence, something that's maybe a little stronger than just anecdotal or beliefs. Because unfortunately, we're in a day and age where it's really easy to like quantify and verify things and get data on things, and just making claims without data is just a bad idea because you're going to get called on it every single time.
Yep.
So Universal Pictures has pulled the movie The Hunt. They've said that they're not planning to release it maybe a couple of years down the road, maybe at a later date. Maybe they would release it, but maybe they're just going to keep it shelved indefinitely. I don't know. Do you think that that's a movie that we should be seeing right now, that like it would be okay still, maybe it's an overreaction, or do you think this is a better idea that it's being shelved? Just hearing kind of this news.
Now, there's an argument made for both sides, and I can understand it both ways. I don't know that this movie particularly ties into like the exact storyline of what's happened over the past week or two.
Absolutely not.
Other than like guns and trying to harm other individuals. At risk of being insensitive, right? I don't want to say anything that's going to be insensitive, and that's obviously not our goal here on the podcast. But
right.
It's a very tough situation. I feel like Universal probably thought, well, we've got more to lose than to gain here, so let's just cut it because it's just too hot right now. And I get that. I think maybe from a business perspective, that's a smart move.
I think so.
But I also think that this is me. I don't like being told what to do. And so I also would want to be like, let's just release it anyway. This is my artistic vision and that's what I want to see happen. And so I'm very much exposing myself as a libertarian here, but I just think that it's a catch-22. You win or you lose. And on this one, they chose to just bow out, and eat the cost of the film, basically.
I'm with you. I think Universal's making the right call for their business, and I also do think that like right now, just that whole kind of idea, like maybe not the best, even if it's satirical. I get, but I definitely don't want to see. I also don't like the precedent of like watching companies like bow down to like societal pressure as well, because then you can get this, kind of concept of, well, hey, if we throw a big enough stink, or if enough of us complain about something, we can get people to back down, and then we can control other people's narratives. That gets into this whole like free speech kind of debate and whatnot. And so it's a tricky conversation, I think, because there's got to be some sort of balance. And you know what the sad thing is? I say it's got to be it's kind of a tricky thing, is because we don't live in a world where people can take a more balanced look at things. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's way too much polarization, way too much split, and I like being able to have conversations, and I'm fine when people tell me that they think I'm wrong and they see something different, and it's like, if they can explain why, like, great, like, convince me I'm wrong. Yeah, let's do that. Convince me I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, and I can see it from a different perspective, then by all means, I'll change. Yeah. But, give and some take. Anyway, this kind of, it's a hot issue.
It's a super hot button issue. And
it's a super hot button issue right now, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And obviously, like, to the people that lost people, like, our thoughts and prayers are with them and with their families, and, anyone that's been affected by this. It's a tragedy, and I hope there's healing, and I hope that people find what they need to continue to move forward. But I also think we need to take some common sense approaches to some of this stuff.
We got to figure it out.
Solve the real issues.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. Thoughts and prayers are important. Yep. But action is also important.
Needed.
So, anyway, that's all we'll say for here. Right. Moving on. All right, I've got something. This is interesting. As a big Lord of the Rings fan, and my wife being a massive Lord of the Rings fan, I would say, the reports have come out that the season 1 of the Lord of the Rings Amazon series will be 20 episodes long.
Ooh, really?
In the world of 8 to 11 episodes a season nowadays for these streaming platforms, Amazon is going for 20.
And they're going to be hour-long episodes?
Unclear. But I would imagine, I don't see how they could do a 20-minute...
Or like a 40, 50-minute episodes, probably something.
Yes, something along kind of what we're used to, kind of the traditional hour-long episode on TV without commercials, like 42 minutes. That's what it sounds like to me. So we could be looking at 20 episodes in season 1. Very cool.
I love that idea.
I'm so happy.
I love that idea.
Man.
Oh, have you read the Wheel of Time series?
No.
Okay. Get on that or listen to it on Audible. I'm re-listening to it because I've gone through it once and I really enjoyed it. And the new Amazon series we talked about, they're going to start filming here in a little while. And so I want something new. Like, obviously I've read all the Lord of the Rings stuff, but I'm really getting invested in this, and I know Amazon's going to do this, and I'm super excited. Yeah. But I'm realizing that we're going to be getting a Lord of the Rings and a Wheel of Time series on Amazon, I think within a pretty close time period. So to me that says Amazon is really doubling down on the whole idea of making content, but also making good quality fantasy content. Yeah. And I am in love with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a smart approach. I think in the world of streaming now, they need to find a niche. And I worry for Netflix spreading themselves too thin. I don't know. We're going to see how Netflix fares over the next year. I worry for them and their business model with prices going up and subscribers going down and Disney Plus about to hit, NBC's thing about to hit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, we're going on tangents left and right here, but I'm excited for Lord of the Rings. I think it's going to be freaking awesome, and Amazon's going to always have money, right? Everyone signs up for Prime, so that's not a problem for them. They just want to push good content so people will buy Prime Video, which is awesome, and I'm into it. I think it's great. I'm super stoked for this, and I'm with you. I'm very hopeful. They're taking a very long time to do this since they announced it, which is frustrating, but also gives me hope that they're really doing the research, understanding the mythology, and they're bringing in all the right people, and I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
Okay, so you brought up Netflix, and I understand the worry, right? Netflix is, subscribers are dropping, and they're going to, I don't know necessarily lose more subscribers when Disney Plus drops, but Disney Plus is definitely going to be taking some shares of the kind of that overall streaming pie now. Mm-hmm. But Netflix is not backing down either.
No, my gosh.
They are doubling down in a big way. So by now, if you've been in kind of nerd and pop culture for like the last 8-ish years, you know about the Game of Thrones TV show that was on HBO. It was massive. Yeah. Well, the creators of that, David Benioff and D.B. Wise, have signed a deal with Netflix. Now we know that like they've been kind of courted by a lot of different studios to have them sign with them and kind of go with them because they've been with HBO pretty much exclusively for quite a while now. Yeah. Netflix has signed them exclusively to a deal that's going to provide them with 9 figures on a check.
Oh gosh. Jeez.
9. Now, 7 gets you into the $1 million range. 9 gets you into the 100 million up to almost 1 billion range.
Ridiculous.
It's not known what that exact number is, but Netflix has locked down David Benioff and D.B. Wise. They're going to be developing TV and film exclusively for Netflix, except for that old Star Wars movie or Star Wars trilogy that they have signed up for, and that they've committed to writing and producing. So obviously that they put out press releases and they said, HBO has been wonderful to them. The past few years, they've had felt at home and they're great, but it's time to move on and do some other things. And they've secured this 9-figure range with Netflix. So while Netflix is losing subscribers and their prices have gone up, which it has to with all the original content they do now, and they have started shifting, like we've talked about, away from hosting other people's content because they know other people are now going to start getting into this game. They're still doubling down hard on themselves. And let me ask you this, though. When you watch something that's a Netflix exclusive, Netflix produced, do you see stuff that's like not high quality anymore? In the early days, I think so.
Right.
But now?
No. It's well shot.
It's high quality.
Yeah, I agree. I think Netflix could have something going for them. I think that their next big move is to keep the Duffer Brothers. If they're able to keep those kind of up-and-coming filmmakers, I mean, the Duffer Brothers are a household name now, along with the Game of Thrones. I just feel like if they can keep those, you're right. And they already got Adam Sandler, too. This is sign him for more movies. Yep. I mean, maybe that's their strategy, is to get these up-and-coming or well-established filmmakers, because you don't really hear about that from anyone else right now. Right? It's like Disney's like, we've got J.J. Abrams for 8 years. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good strategy. And yeah, I totally can see that now. It's a good point.
The only thing that's worrying me a little bit about this is that they are spending a ton of money. That David Benioff and D.B. Wise, they need to come out with another big, massive hit, something that's going to have everyone talking, everyone streaming, because if they don't, and they just produce like a bunch of good stuff, but it's never kind of like that water cooler show. It's not like The Lost, where like everyone would go into work and talk about the smoke monster and what Jacob means and, what Sawyer and Kate are doing. And, if it doesn't have that kind of like zeitgeist buzz behind it, a lot of people are going to say that this was a bad deal for Netflix to do. Right. That it didn't generate the, the kind of viewership that they're going to need. So that's my only one slight fear, but I guess we'll have to see what it looks like going forward. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what Netflix does. It's a hit or miss for me on Netflix original stuff anyway, to be honest. A lot of it is uber mature. Most of it, I would say, is uber mature, which I just am not that interested in, to be honest. If I want to hear the F word, all I gotta do is walk around the street. I don't need to hear it in my house.
I was gonna say that's just because we're immature, but whatever. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So that's, Disney's gonna take all the people like I mean, I'm going to have them all. Who am I kidding? I want to watch all the freaking shows I can. Anyway, neither here nor there. Let's go looking at more streaming platforms. Let's move over to Disney Plus.
Okay.
This is my final item.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know you've been asking for this, so you're going to be so happy. Home Alone is coming to Disney Plus.
Oh, okay.
So
I love that movie. I watch it around Christmas every year.
Fantastic. But they made a bunch of sequels after the great sequel, and they were not good.
True.
They were not good. Look, the magic of that movie is Macaulay Culkin. Okay, he's the perfect cute little boy. I just, I'm fine with this, I guess, but I'm not like, this is exciting, I need this in my life. And I believe this is a TV show. This is not a movie.
So it's a remake, but they're going to be a TV show.
Yes. Reimagining.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about this. So, they also mentioned Night at the Museum, Cheaper by the Dozen, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid as well. In this, Home Alone being kind of the headlining act of that, but I don't know. I would say I'm a purist, but I mean, is Home Alone a purist thing? It's one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. I can quote it all day and all night, and I watch it like 4 times every Christmas. I love it.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
Oh, he's the worst uncle ever. My gosh, why do they keep that cheapskate mother trucker around?
I love that line. I use that all the time when someone does something stupid or funny. I'm like,
it is a good line.
What you did, you little jerk.
Yeah, it's perfect. Anyway.
I'm super excited about Disney Plus. I think we talked about the whole idea of Disney Plus, and Hulu and ESPN for like that $13 price range, which is, like you said, Netflix range. So like, you're going to get some of this stuff. You're going to get some remakes or some, reimaginings. But you're also going to get like The Mandalorian and all the Marvel stuff with Loki. Oh, there's so much good.
Yep.
But you can't get all gold. Occasionally you're going to have to get a little bit of silver or bronze. So maybe the Home Alone reimagining is going to be like a bronze.
Maybe.
Maybe
it'll just suck worse than bronze.
So speaking of something that's probably not going to be gold.
Oh boy.
Matt, you're a little young, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but you're a little young to probably really have grown up with the G.I. Joes.
Understandable. You are right.
That was my childhood, man, like G.I. Joe cartoons. And then a number of years ago, they made live-action G.I. Joe movies.
They looked terrible.
Which were not that great. They weren't... As far as action movies go, if you just kind of strip it down and look at it only as an action movie, it was still just kind of but it wasn't like horrendous. But like if you look at it as like a real movie with a good story, no, not great. Well, it's been 6 years since we've had a G.I. Joe movie, and apparently the real American heroes, the G.I. Joes, are coming back. We know that we're actually going to be getting a Snake Eyes solo film. But according to the Hollywood Reporter, Paramount Hasbro, they've hired some writers, Josh Applebaum and Andre Nemec, who wrote Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, to write a new G.I. Joe movie. We know it's going to be an ensemble piece, which is kind of like every G.I. Joe movie, because you can't just have like one or two big leads. They kind of focus on all of them. We don't know what it's going to focus on, but writers have been hired. It's been 6 years. They said that they're going to make it fit in with the current films that have been there, but, kind of be, tied to this. The one thing they need to do, in my opinion, is they got to get The Rock in this, because he was in one of the other ones, and right now he's super huge. He's all over the place in Hollywood and in all these crazy movies lately. So you got to get him back. I think that's a catch. The other thing is, too, you said you think they were bad movies, they look bad. Each of those movies have made over $300 million worldwide.
Wow.
So, I mean, they're not like Avengers Endgame type of, money. But still, $300 million worldwide for each one of those. It's nothing to laugh at.
No, that ain't bad.
It's more money than I have in my checking account.
Well, speak for yourself, but sure. That's interesting.
So,
okay, so G.I. Joe coming back. Hey, The Rock never met a role he didn't like. That's my opinion. He's in everything.
I think it's more like The Rock never met a paycheck he didn't like.
Hey.
Which I'm not blaming the guy for.
I like The Rock too, so I'm into it.
I mean, he did do that like nanny movie, whatever, and I was like, maybe you're doing that 'cause something your kids can watch. Maybe you're just collecting a paycheck. I don't know. I don't care. You do you.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, G.I. Joe coming back. We're gonna get a new G.I. Joe movie, so there's that, I guess.
Buckle up. 6 years is too long, they said. We need another one.
That's right.
Bring them back.
So, Matt.
Yes.
Last week, we had a conversation.
We did.
And we talked about some stuff. Do you remember what we talked about, Matt?
I know we talked about Sonic.
We did. We did. Although that's not exactly...
That's what I took from it was Sonic. No, we talked about back-to-school movies.
We did. We talked about back-to-school movies. And so we asked the Super Friends, like, what is your favorite back-to-school movie?
Yes, I'm interested.
And we did get some answers. And so I think we're gonna have to read those answers, don't you think?
I think we should. I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think we should too. So let's go over to our email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com, and we can read an email from the one and only Peter Christensen. Which, by the way, do you remember last week when we gave a little special message?
Yes, the Traeger
to Peter's wife. Yeah, we had him turn up his volume, and we had, we left a message. We'll just say that. So this week, his wife Celeste has tagged me a few times on Facebook, saying like, "Hey, I heard you mention me on the podcast, and I heard you said that we should do something." I'm like, I don't know what this is about, but it's pretty good advice. It sounds like. This, that, and the other. And so then they've been texting me pictures or hitting me on Facebook with pictures of like them in Costco talking to like the Traeger rep and like Peter pointing to a Traeger. And every time I keep saying like, that looks good, but did it come home?
Yeah.
Is Peter getting the hookup?
Right.
And they've yet to confirm that. So
Okay.
just saying like, I think Peter's getting near the ballpark now.
Feels like it.
I think maybe the ice has started to thaw a little bit. Maybe it's broken and the ship is starting to move again. I think he might be heading into safer Traeger waters, but I'm not sure. So we'll have to find out. But Peter does say, "Dear nerds, I'm not excusing EA's laziness, but to play devil's advocate, first, their own crappy port shows that they're not well equipped for the task. Second, just because some people are willing to throw money at them doesn't matter if they need X million people to throw money at them to make the numbers, including opportunity cost of the dev work. Pencil that out. If you think they're too dumb to see a market, you'd have to explain how they found all the other markets they're succeeding in." Okay, that's true. I do get that, because they do make a lot of money in a lot of other places. But I do just...
I still feel like they're missing it.
I feel like there's an opportunity
like they don't
there.
get it. Like they don't understand the Switch, and they're just afraid of it because it's not what they're familiar with. I don't know.
In all fairness, that FIFA port.
It's like garbage.
Garbage. It does.
It's and it plays like garbage. And they didn't even port over all the modes. So what do they expect? People are going to go out and buy a crap port just because it's on Switch? No. Most people who have a Switch have something else to play it on. If you're not going to give them a reason to play it on Switch, then why would they? Anyway.
Yep. Anyway,
but I get it. I also understand this point of view, too.
Yeah. He says, to imagine a well-done MCU Deadpool, check out Deadpool's cameo in How It Should Have Ended, How Captain America Should Have Returned the Stones, and Ryan Reynolds' cameo in Hobbs and Shaw.
What?
And he included a YouTube link to the How It Should Have Ended. So I'm going to have to go check that out.
I love those.
Because if there is a good way that they're showing like how Deadpool could be in the MCU, I'm all down for that. He says, anyone thinking about letting the public in on the creative process should have a stiff drink with the directors and financiers of Snakes on a Plane. Yeah.
Mother
Anyway.
snakes. Good old
Yeah,
Samuel.
he says, for back-to-school movies, I choose 10 Things I Hate About You, where Heath Ledger being introduced to a new school, including the tour of the cliques. Pitch Perfect, the showcase of weird college clubs and roommate clashes.
Sure.
Dead Poet Society, boys of all ages starting at a fancy prep school, complete with the archaic bagpipe opening ceremony. And Harry Potter, the first trip to Hogwarts has to be the iconic introduction to school in movie history. Cheers, Peter Christensen. I mean, 4 really solid but kind of back-to-school movies right there.
Oh, great.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Peter, and let us know, are you now part of Traeger Nation? Did you get there? If not, we can send that message again if you need, Peter. Just let us know. We're here for you. We're here to help. Usually we've got messages over on Facebook, which is facebook.com/FortofNerd, but not this week, so we're going to bounce right over to Twitter. And we're going to start with Network Newbie at dspin67, our good buddy. He says, I don't think I have a favorite movie. I mean, I didn't want to go back to school after being out all summer. Then again, Friday the 13th was a good summer flick. Was it? I mean,
Look,
was it?
Which one? I mean, the first one is not good.
No, it's not just that, but it's like back to school movies or like a summer flick movie. Like, I think like less death should be involved.
I agree.
Just yeah. Well, okay. Well, some people. I mean,
who am I kidding? I love the horror movies. This last year was the first time I watched Friday the 13th, and maybe it's because it was built up with all the hype that one would expect after an entire life of knowing who Jason is, but not knowing anything about him outside of he's scary and he holds a machete. But I sat down and watched it, and I was like, this is different than what I had anticipated the movie to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my opinion, just my thought.
Okay. Yeah. Going still back over at Twitter, Tim Paulin at TPaulin20 says, back to school, of course. I mean, Back to School is a classic back to school movie. You can't go wrong with Rodney Dangerfield. And then the Friends Talking Nerdy podcast at FT Nerdy says, Rock and Roll High School.
Tell me more.
So
what the heck is Rock and Roll High School?
Are you not familiar with Rock and Roll High School?
No.
Well,
sounds like a Disney Channel movie.
Does it?
Rock and Roll High School? Yeah, didn't they have Camp Rock? It's like the same thing.
I'm pretty sure it was a movie made in 1979.
Oh.
Yeah, a group of rock music loving students with the help of the Ramones take over their school to combat its newly installed oppressive administration.
Yes, stick it to the man. I like it.
Yes. The year I was born, 1979.
What a year.
And it's full of the Ramones. So
hey, if you're a rocker, that sounds right up your alley, baby.
Right? So, yes. So thank you so much for Super Friends for all your answers this week to our question of the week. We always appreciate the interaction. Like always, you can get us the email, you can get us on Facebook, Twitter, and then also the Instagram, and then the voicemail, which is 801-477-7687. Matt, what can the Super Friends do to help us out this week? Not last week, not next week, but this week.
Look, it's time that you go to iTunes, you subscribe, and you leave a review. It's so simple, y'all. And it's going to be the same song and dance. So while you're out there enjoying your last few days of summer, whether that's as a young lad or lass, before you have to hit the books again. You're in your swimsuit, just hop on your computer, grab your phone, subscribe and like and leave reviews. Or if you're mom and dad and you are so tired because your kids are driving you absolutely insane all day, every day, and you can't wait for school to start again, while they're out playing, subscribe and listen to us on your drive to drop your kids off and then enjoy your freedom.
There you go.
That's all I got to do.
Spoken like a true father who's waiting for his kids to start school.
I got years, my man. And another one on the way. A little bit overwhelming, but you know what?
Yeah, you hit that reset button. That's on you.
You know, when I wanted it, I got a boy, so I'm pretty stoked. One girl, one boy, I'm into it.
Yeah, you're fine. Yep. All right, super friends. So I had an interesting conversation with my coworker Jeremy, who's out here, and he was asking. He's into all sorts of the nerd pop culture stuff, and so typically him and I can talk about quite a lot of it. And he asked me, he says, "Have you seen Spider-Man: Far From Home?" I said, "Yes." "Have you?" And he says, "Not yet." And I was like, "Oh!" And I had this moment where like I wanted so badly to talk about it with him. But I know I can't because anything I say would be spoilery and it would be spoilers and I don't want to ruin someone else's enjoyment of something. And Matt, we live in a era now where like thinking about spoilers and not spoiling stuff for people has become a real kind of thing.
Oh yeah, big time.
I feel like it used to be a couple years ago like you'd hear a couple people talk about it a little bit, but now like everyone talks about it. Some people even go out of their way to purposely spoil stuff for people.
Yes, they do.
Which I say, shame on you, that's bad.
Yes.
So I was, thinking about that and I was like, man, I wish we could talk about it, but I'm going to have to wait until he sees it because I don't want to spoil anything. And then I came across an article that says that researchers at the University of California in San Diego are setting out to solve this problem. So they're teaching a neural network and artificial intelligence to identify spoilers in reviews by analyzing text of said reviews. And then they compile a database pulled from book reviews on Goodreads that were tagged as spoilery and try to learn from them. So that the idea would be at some point, maybe have some sort of an application or maybe a Chrome browser plugin that could kind of scrub the internet, so to speak, of spoilers for you.
Right.
Just 100,000 foot level. You hear that before we go into any other details. What do you think about that? Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
It can't be bad, in my opinion. It's a good idea. I think people would use it.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I see the kind of the want to use something like that. It's like when I would videotape ball games, right? I'd videotape a baseball game.
Yeah.
And I worked all day and I'm looking forward to going home and just sitting down and watching my Chicago Cubs play. I know that the game is over. I know that watching it live or watching it, taped later isn't going to affect the outcome of the game because the game's outcome has already happened. But I hated it when friends would call me up and be like, "Man, did you watch the game? It was crazy." I'm like, "No, don't tell me anything. I want to enjoy the game." And I had certain friends that they knew that, and so they'd either try to lie to me or they'd try to try to throw me off the track.
Yep.
But more often than not, I just they'll say "Oh man, that game got wild at the end. You're not going to believe the ending." It's okay, well, obviously they lost.
Right.
So great, they had this wild, controversial call or whatever, but now I still know they lost, so I know what's going to happen. What's the point of watching it?
Right.
I've always kind of been that way, especially with sports, stuff. And I've had some people that are like, "Yeah, man, if you don't watch sports live, I don't care. I'm going to talk about it." And I typically ended up stop following those people or interacting on social media with those people.
Yep.
It's you have no courtesy for your friends. I mean, what do you have for people that you're not friends with or just acquaintances with?
Sure.
Or, people you don't know? It's oh, goodness. So I don't know, this whole idea of being able to to filter out spoilers. It's good, but there's some problems with it. So apparently, let's say, I don't know, let's say they're trying to scrub the word like murder or die. Well, you might be able to say like, oh, you know, that musician murdered that song. And so like you could get like a false positive and it can't know the difference. Mm-hmm. Or maybe like it's, you know, using the term, I don't know, like they brought up the idea of green. And maybe like green is just a description, you know, it's a color, but maybe it's also a character. And so they're talking about like, you know, Mr. Green fell to his, you know, demise or something.
Yeah.
And so like it might not be like murder or death, but then they're like, oh, well, Mr. Green gets it in the end. Mm. And that's not going to trigger everything. But they said what was interesting is that with the book reviews, it could detect spoilers 89 to 92% accurate.
Dang.
And they said, though, the reason, a big part of that is that when people typically write reviews that have spoilers, they tend to keep the spoilers to the very end of the review.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So that helped a lot. But they said when they were trying to do spoilers on TV shows, it was only 74 to 80% accurate.
Okay.
You know, a little harder.
Yep.
The text starts having some, like we said, some issues with trying to understand nuance of language, this, that, and the other. But what's interesting about this as I was reading this, Matt, and I want your opinion on this. Do you think we're in a culture, like, do you think we're in a place now in society where we should be always putting the spoiler warning in front of everything?
Not in front of everything. I don't think so. I think there are certain things that it's courtesy and it's kindness. And you should always, especially interpersonal or through text message where you're not like mass media, like Facebook posts or something, you should ask. I think that's even if it's an older movie that you want to discuss or a TV show, you ask, have you seen X, Y, and Z? And then you discuss X, Y, and Z, and that's okay. But when it pertains to like writing reviews and mass media and Twitter and all of that, it's, I don't know. It all seems like a lost cause. If you don't want something to be spoiled, don't go to the places that you're going to see the spoilers.
Yeah. Do you remember when Endgame came out, the Russo brothers, the directors,
yes,
like
I do
specifically
remember that.
asked, like, you know, and then they did it with Infinity War too. They had the hashtag Thanos demands your silence. Yes. And then they also asked for a spoiler embargo for like the first week or 2 weeks. Yeah, first 2 weeks. And I felt like that actually did fairly well. I mean, obviously certain places were going to spoil it. But I do feel that like that did help.
I agree.
But at the same time, like I'm kind of two minds on this because one, I don't like things when they're spoiled for me. And I'm with you. I think the whole idea of a courtesy ask, have you seen this movie or have you seen this show? And if they say yes, say, great, we can talk about it. But if they say no, then I always follow up with are you going to see this?
Yeah.
Because if they say no, like I've got a buddy, Nathan, and he doesn't care about spoilers because sometimes he's so far behind on watching things or reading things that like it may be 6 months, it may be a year, it may be a couple of years before he'll get back around to it. So he's forgotten a lot of the spoilers.
Yeah.
But I still, when I talk to him, I try not to be like, you know, hey, at the end, so-and-so character dies. Right. If it's a big character, because that, like, you're not going to forget that. But if I could say, oh man, like the death toll, it was really more than I thought. And I, you know, had expectations and my expectations weren't met or were subverted. And I say things like that. If he watches it 2 years later, he may not remember that. Or he may remember just parts of it, but it may not be enough to give stuff away. But if people say, yes, I intend to watch that, then I just don't talk about it.
Right.
Because I don't want to ruin the experience for someone else. So I get that. But then the other side of me says, if we can't talk about things, and the internet is the way we communicate in the world now that we live in, then at what point are we just all sitting around like not talking about things that we all want to talk about, but we can't because we're afraid of talking about it? Like, it just seems like silly at the same time.
Yes. So I have, especially as it pertained to Endgame, right? Which is really kind of, I mean, just by dollars worth, right? The biggest movie in the history of the world. And one of the biggest cultural events that we'll ever be a part of is seeing Endgame. I had a hard time because I avoided everything, even though I saw it at 7 p.m. the day it was before it was supposed to come out, right? Or however they do it now, right? The pre-show screenings, whatever. Right. I don't understand. I remember having to wait till midnight when I was a kid, but that doesn't happen. Okay, getting on another tangent here. Anyway, I felt that if I didn't want it spoiled, it was my responsibility to see the movie to avoid the spoilers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think, especially with big events, let's say like a big franchise, a Star Wars or a Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Marvel experience, you need to understand as a citizen and somebody who cares about the franchise, you should probably see it opening weekend if you don't want something spoiled. And so there's to me, it's like there's a responsibility to everybody else to not spoil the movie for you, but there's also a personal responsibility to where if this is something that really matters to you, you're either A, going to see it opening weekend or watch the TV show and binge it or whatever the opening weekend, or you're going to stay off of the internet until you see it.
Yeah. I mean, I do remember, just thinking about now that I do a lot of times on Sundays, like if I'm going to watch the Bears game, I go into like a media blackout once the Bears game starts. If I'm not going to watch it, like I will turn off all notifications. I will not open Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anything. I will make sure that I don't have any of like my NFL apps or MLB apps on that, sends me notifications, because I just don't want to ruin it for myself and accidentally see something.
Right.
So there's definitely the ownership there, but I guess what you're saying about, you should try to see it opening weekend. I mean, that can be hard. Like if, you're working crazy hours or you can't get there. And so like, then it's kind of like on you to like, try to tiptoe around the internet, I guess. What do you think is like, because I do think there is some social responsibility like on our part, because we're a podcast and we cover this stuff and we've done movies that have been like current and new, and we have given spoiler warnings and given our super friends a fair warning. Like Peter Christensen said, just literally like I think 2 episodes ago, that he can't go on with that episode yet until he finishes Stranger Things season 3, because he doesn't want us to spoil anything. And admittedly, we dropped some spoilers, and so it would ruin his experience.
Yeah.
So this podcast, we've even given spoiler warnings before, and we will continue to do that for things.
Certainly.
Because we don't want to ruin things for people. But when do you think is like an okay time then to say, hey, we're kind of past the threshold where we should be giving spoiler warnings anymore. Everything's kind of fair game. Like, where do you think that line is for maybe like TV or like video games?
Really
media?
tough. Really tough situation. Because initially I want to say, like the Russos did, 2 weeks. I think you give it 2 weeks. And I think that is a general rule. But sometimes it's a little bit longer. For me, when I'm talking to somebody about a spoiler movie or even in just general conversation, I'll catch myself. If it's a movie that's come out in the last, maybe 2 or 3 months, or a TV show that I've watched in the last 2 or 3 months, that I feel like the expectation is my brother should have seen that movie already. He usually hasn't because it's not his thing. But I always catch myself and ask if he's seen it for probably 2 or 3 months, I would say.
I feel like with movies, I think I'm 2 or 3 months. I think I'm kind of around where you're at, unless it's some like big cultural touchstone movie.
Yes.
Like I remember when Inception came out, like there were still people like months later that hadn't seen it yet for whatever reason. And I'd say, hey, have you seen Inception? And they'd say, no, not yet. And I could tell by their tone of their voice, like they really want to. And I was like, you have to see that. Talk to me after you've seen that, because I want to talk with you about it. Right. So maybe cultural touchstone movies, like a Star Wars movie, like, I'm going to assume most people that run in the same circles I do are going to see it in the first week or two.
Right.
But not always. So I feel like generally 2 to 3 months on movies is good. But with video games, I'm different. I want to give that a lot longer of a lead time, because video games can take a lot longer to get through. Like, so you're playing Red Dead Redemption 2 still, right?
Yes.
That's a big game. Like, that's
Massive.
a game you're going to easily sink 100 hours plus into. If we were talking about the content of it and spoiling it 2 to 3 months later, you might still only be halfway through because you're a father and you work and got responsibilities. So maybe you're only playing maybe 45 minutes a day, 3 or 4 days a week.
Right.
You're not going to, 2 or 3 months down the road, you're still going to be not even halfway through it. So I always feel like in the video game world, about a year is a good point to start saying like, hey, at this point, you've already played it, or you're probably not going to be playing it for quite a while. And I think it's okay if we talk about it openly.
Sure.
So that's where I'm at. What do you think of video games? Do you think that's fair, or do you think that it should be longer?
I think for video games, I always ask if they've played it. But if we're on like the podcast, I would give a spoiler for a video game. I don't even know what the time frame would be when I beat it. That's probably super unfair, but that's kind of how I feel about those things. I mean, it depends on the kind of game. If it's a very narrative heavy game, then maybe I probably would be like you and give it much more time. But for a game like Mario or Zelda, it's like, well, Zelda, guess what? The story's the same every freaking time with very different, very minor variations. Guess what? At the end, you kill Ganon or Ganondorf or whatever form he's taken in this game.
Right.
And,
yeah.
But I think for some narrative portions of games, then you'd want to wait a little bit longer. But I'm not as worried. Maybe it's because I'm not as gung-ho and into video games as I am gung-ho and into the other forms of media like TV shows and movies, that I'm not going to get offended. Even though I'm playing Red Dead, I'm probably not going to be that mad if somebody tells me what happens at the end, because I'm usually not as invested as I am in spoilers for Endgame. Yeah. Tony Stark, you know what I mean? Like, there's a very big, you know what I'm saying? There's an investment for me personally on that. And like you said, for sports, if somebody spoiled a San Francisco Giants game, which is who I love them and all that stuff, I would not be that mad. If somebody spoiled a BYU football game, I would murder them. I only get like 13 the emotional of investment, in a season, and I will murder you. So I think there's some personal stuff too. There's people who will probably think, oh, it's not a big deal if I talk about this, but to somebody else, that's a big, important thing to them. And
well, never you fear, Matt. I will never spoil a BYU football game.
You won't have to, because I don't ever watch them not live. I don't care what's happening. I will always watch it.
I don't watch them, so I couldn't spoil it for you if I tried. But I totally, like I said, I totally get how you are. Like, man, someone spoiled a Bears game for me or a Cubs game for me, especially if I'm like dying to watch it and I'm coming home. Oh, there's just nothing worse. That just makes me so angry.
Really grinds your gears.
It's a way to trigger me so fast.
Yeah. Yep.
But so I like the idea. I like the idea that these researchers, University of California, San Diego, are going for. They're building this spoiler net, this AI. I hope it doesn't rise up to, overthrow all humanity and destroy us, or keep us from having conversations, one of the two.
Right.
But I like this idea. I like the idea that people are trying to be more socially aware of this, and they're trying to find a way to use technology to help solve the problem.
Right.
Because people are going to be people, and there's going to be people that are going to find it funny to spoil things, and there's going to be people that are just too excited about something that they're going to inadvertently spoil it. That's just going to happen. It's human nature. Yep. But I want to ask the Super Friends, what do you guys think, Super Friends? How long before you think the spoiler embargo for like movies or TV drops, and how long do you think the spoiler embargo for video games before it drops? I think Matt and I are both around 2 to 3 months for TV movies, and I'm a year on games, and Matt's pretty much like whenever he's done with the games. That's when it drops. So,
I'm
Super Friends, we
selfish.
want to hear from you.
Yes.
Let us know on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on the voicemail, email, smoke signals, carrier pigeons,
Wow.
however you want to get that to us. And we'll talk about it next week. Next week, Matt, we're going to do a movie club. We're going to keep it a mystery movie club, Super Friends. You will find out next week. We're not going to spoil what our movie club is going to be. But it'll be a movie club, and we may have Brita join us. We may not. It depends. It's like the night before the first day of school and new daycare, and she's gonna be doing all that by herself. So she may or may not have the stamina to do a podcast. But hopefully, I'm not gonna tell you because that could even be a spoiler.
Yeah.
We won't even spoil that.
Nope.
So anyway, thank you for showing up once again, Super Friends, and we'll hear from you next week. So from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you, always.